The night has a gentle way of lowering its voice. Somewhere beyond the edges of your day, a lake is settling into stillness. The last light loosens its grip on the water, and the surface becomes a soft mirror, less like glass, more like breath. A thin mist drifts close to the reeds, moving slowly, as if it has nowhere else to be. And in that quiet, a pale shape glides through the darkening blue, unhurried and calm, like a thought that finally decides it can rest. Welcome to Sleepy Nature Sleep, where the wild grows soft and curiosity becomes calm. Tonight, let your thoughts follow the rhythm of the earth, your breathing settle like evening wind, and your mind wander gently through the quiet wild. If your shoulders are holding the weight of the day, you can let them soften now, just a little. If your mind is still busy, you don't have to chase it into silence. You can simply give it something slow and peaceful to follow. A ripple, a feather, a small, steady motion that doesn't ask anything from you. And if you found your way here before, welcome back. If you're new, you're warmly included. In this little corner of the night, we share the same simple intention: to slow down together and listen to the living world as it moves at its own gentle pace. If this kind of quiet nature storytelling helps you unwind, you might consider subscribing, so these calm journeys are easy to return to whenever you need them. And if you'd like, you can share in the comments where you're listening from, what time the night feels like where you are, or what kind of wild place you wish you could visit in your dreams. This channel is supported in small ways, by likes, by kind words, and by those who choose to offer a little extra support to keep these videos growing steadily and softly. If you ever feel like helping, there are simple options nearby. But for now, the only thing you need to do is rest your attention lightly, like a leaf floating on quiet water. Tonight, our path moves toward a bird that seems made for calm. The mute swan, white as moonlight, heavy with grace, and often surrounded by the illusion of perfect quiet. It doesn't rush. It doesn't announce itself with noise. It drifts, it preens, it breathes, and it lives in the slow language of water. So let the lake be your lullaby. Let the night air be your blanket. And as we begin, allow yourself to follow the mute swan's unhurried rhythm, one gentle moment at a time, into the quiet story waiting on the dark, peaceful water. Some questions arrive quietly. They do not knock on the door of your thoughts. They do not ask to be solved. They simply appear like a pale moon behind thin cloud, and they stay, soft and patient, until you notice them. Tonight's question waits near the edge of a lake. It rests among the reeds, where the water meets the land, and everything seems to speak in whispers. If you imagine that shoreline now, you can see it in gentle layers. Dark water in front, green reeds behind, and above them, a wide, calm sky. The air is cool enough to feel clean. The light is low enough to feel kind. And somewhere in that quiet, a mute swan drifts as if it has all the time in the world. So here is the question, offered softly, with no need for an answer right away. What does stillness protect, and what does it reveal? You can hold that question loosely, like you might hold a smooth stone in your palm, not tightly, not with effort, just enough to feel its presence. Stillness protects many small things. It protects warmth. It protects energy. It protects a rest-in body from spending what it doesn't need to spend. You can see this on the lake. The water itself becomes a kind of blanket when it is calm, holding the swan without making demands. The swan floats and seems to say, without words, that quiet is not empty. Quiet is a place where life can be gentle, and stillness reveals things too. When the world slows down, you begin to notice what was always there: the tiniest wavelets, the soft stitching of wind across water, the way reeds lean together like a small crowd sharing a secret. You notice the swan's slow posture, the curve of its neck, the way its white feathers dim into silver at dusk. You notice, perhaps, that your own breathing has edges, an inhale that lifts, an exhale that settles. A mute swan does not rush to show you anything. It simply exists, and in that simple existence, it becomes a calm mirror. The lake does the same. The lake holds reflections, but it also holds depth. It can show you the sky and still keep its own quiet world underneath. So, as we begin this journey together, let the question stay nearby. Let it float beside you, unbothered. You do not need to solve it tonight. You only need to let it slow you down. Because this is what we are doing here, following a creature that lives in the language of still water and letting your mind drift with it, gently, toward rest. Imagine a lake that has learned how to be quiet, not because nothing happens there, but because everything happens slowly, in soft patterns that repeat like a lullaby. The shoreline does not announce itself. It simply appears. A dark ribbon of water, a fringe of reeds, a few leaning grasses, and a gentle scatter of lily pads that float like small green rafts. The air above the lake carries a calm heaviness, the kind that arrives when evening settles in. Sound travels differently here. It doesn't bounce sharply. It slides. It drifts. A distant bird call feels rounded at the edges. A small splash becomes a quick sparkle and then disappears back into hush. This is the landscape of the mute swan, an animal shaped for water and for patience. The lake is not just water. It is layers. At the surface, it holds reflections. The dim light, the silhouettes of reeds, the pale suggestion of clouds. Beneath the surface, it holds a quiet world of stems, leaves, soft mud, and slow-moving life. Plants stretch upward from the bottom, and tiny creatures move among them, as if the whole place is a gentle breathing system. You can picture the water near the reeds, shallow, darker, and full of hidden shapes. And farther out, where the lake deepens, the surface becomes smoother, like satin laid flat. It is here that the mute swan glides. Its body sits low in the water, steady and heavy, as if the lake is carrying it with practiced ease. Even when it moves, it does not look hurried. Each glide leaves a wake, two soft lines spreading out behind it. Those lines widen, thin, and vanish. And then, the lake returns to stillness, as if nothing ever disturbed it. The reeds sway slightly, not with drama, but with gentle agreement, responding to air and water the way a relaxed person responds to music. This place is full of small rhythms that never ask you to pay attention, but always reward you if you do. And as you listen, you may notice your own body settling into this landscape. Your breath can become like the lake, smooth at the surface, deep underneath. Your thoughts can become like reeds, present but not demanding. Tonight, this lake is our setting. It is our slow stage. The mute swan is one of its calmest actors, moving through the scene with the quiet confidence of something that belongs. So let the shoreline form in your mind. Let the water darken into dusk. Let the reeds stand like soft guardians at the edge of night. And when you are ready, we will drift closer to the swan itself, white, quiet, and unhurried, like a lullaby made visible. There is a special kind of calm that looks almost like brightness. On a dim lake, a mute swan can seem to glow, not in a sharp way, not like a lamp, but like moonlight on snow. Its feathers hold the last light of evening, and then hold the first light of night. Even when everything around it turns blue-gray, the swan stays softly pale, as if it is carrying a small piece of daytime with it. You can watch it from a distance at first, a white shape moving on dark water, a gentle curve, a slow glide. It does not cut through the lake like a boat with purpose. It slides as if the water is already going where it wants to go, and the swan is simply agreeing. When you come a little closer in your imagination, you notice how the swan's body looks heavy in the most peaceful way, not burdened, just solid, settled, comfortably real. Its feathers lie in neat layers, overlapping like shingles on a roof, designed to keep water out and warmth in. That design is quiet and practical, and it makes the swan seem like a floating blanket. And then there's the posture. Mute swans have a way of holding themselves as if they are in no danger of being late to anything. Their neck rises and curves, and the shape feels almost ceremonial, like a slow question mark drawn in air. Sometimes the swan bends its neck down to look at the water, and it looks like it is studying its own reflection with mild curiosity, or perhaps with the relaxed confidence of someone who knows they look quite good. There is something gently humorous here too, if you allow it. The swan's elegance can look so deliberate, as if it spent years practicing how to glide properly, as if it attended a small exclusive school for floating beautifully. And yet, beneath the surface, its feet are paddling, quietly, steadily, doing the unseen work that makes the calm possible. It's a small reminder. Calm often has hidden effort, but it doesn't need to advertise itself. As you watch the swan drift, you may notice how your own attention begins to drift with it. Your mind doesn't have to grip anything. It can simply follow that slow motion. Forward, steady, soft. The lake holds the swan without complaint. The swan accepts the lake without urgency, and the night gathers around them, both like a curtain that falls gently, not suddenly. So let your thoughts become lighter. Let your body feel supported. Let the image of moonlit feathers and heavy calm settle into you like a quiet suggestion. You do not have to hurry through this night. You can float through it. When people say quiet, they sometimes mean nothing. But nature rarely offers nothing. Nature offers softness. Nature offers low volume. Nature offers the kind of sound that does not demand attention, yet stays present like a gentle companion. A mute swan is often described as silent, but even mute is a kind of misunderstanding. The swan simply speaks in a quieter dialect. It communicates through the small sounds of living, the hush of feathers shifting, the gentle push of water, the steady breath that comes and goes without fanfare. If you listen closely to a swan on a lake, you might hear a faint exhale, barely more than air moving. You might hear the tiniest slap of water against its body as it glides. You might hear reeds ticking softly as the breeze moves them. None of these sounds are loud, but together they form a kind of nighttime orchestra, playing music so slow it almost becomes silence. The lake itself has a voice too. Sometimes it is the quiet tap of a ripple against a lily pad. Sometimes it is the soft brushing sound of wind sliding across the surface. Sometimes it is the gentle creak of a reed bending and returning. These noises do not build into anything dramatic. They simply exist, as steady as the rhythm of breathing. And that steadiness can be soothing, because when your mind is busy, silence can feel too open, too wide. A little sound, soft sound, can help your thoughts settle, the way a steady hand on your shoulder helps you relax. The Mute Swan does this without trying. It becomes part of the lake's soundscape, as natural and unforced as a shadow. There is also a kind of quiet language and movement. The swan's wake spreads behind it in two faint lines that widen and fade. The water remembers the swan for a moment and then lets it go. That too is communication, a brief mark, a gentle release, a lesson written in ripples. If you were here at the lakeshore in person, you might notice how your own body responds. Your shoulders lower, your jaw softens, your breathing slows, almost in imitation. The lake invites the nervous system to do what it already wants to do at night: rest. So tonight, we don't have to chase silence. We don't have to force the mind into emptiness. We can let it land on these small, soft sounds instead, like a bird finding a comfortable branch. The quiet that isn't empty is often the most comforting kind. It is filled with permission. Permission to slow down, permission to listen, permission to let your thoughts become less sharp, less urgent, more like water moving gently under moonlight. Up close, the Mute Swan becomes a collection of gentle details. Not the kind of details you have to memorize, just the kind you can notice and enjoy. The way you might notice the pattern on a seashell or the shape of a cloud. The swan's face, especially, has an elegant simplicity that feels almost like a quiet symbol. There's the bill, bright orange, like a warm ember in the cool evening palette. And at the base of that bill, a dark knob, rounded and calm, as if nature added a small punctuation mark. The contrast is striking, but not loud. It's like a soft accent in a bedtime painting. You can think of the bill as a tool, of course. It helps the swan feed, pull plants, and explore the underwater world. But tonight, we can also think of it as something else. A little compass, pointed gently forward, guiding the swan through its slow, watery route. Because the swan's life is full of navigation, quiet choices made without drama. A shallow edge or a deeper stretch of lake, a cluster of reeds for shelter, a patch of underwater plants for grazing. The swan drifts toward what it needs with a calm certainty that feels almost soothing to watch. No rush, no frantic searching, just steady movement and small adjustments, like a slow dance with the water. And the eyes, dark and glossy, hold a kind of calm attention. Not wide, not startled, more like a relaxed focus, as if the swan is always lightly aware of its surroundings without becoming tense about them. This is not the gaze of urgency. It is the gaze of belonging. Even the way the swan turns its head is unhurried. A slow swivel, a gentle pause, a look down at the water, where reflections shimmer and disappear. It can feel like the swan is checking the lake the way you might check a blanket, just making sure everything is where it should be. There is something quietly reassuring in watching an animal that is so well suited to its world. The swan does not fight the water, it rests in it. It does not demand the night be different. It accepts the night, and in that acceptance, it seems even calmer. So as you listen, let your attention rest on this one small detail. The beak like a little compass, pointed forward, steady and sure. Let it remind you that you don't have to figure everything out tonight. You can simply drift. You can let your mind move in the direction of comfort, one small, gentle choice at a time, towards stillness, towards softness, towards sleep. There is a quiet secret beneath the swan's calm. From above, it looks effortless, white body floating, neck gently curved, the whole bird moving as if the lake itself is carrying it forward. But under the surface, out of sight, the swan's feet paddle in a steady, unhurried rhythm. Not frantic, not forceful, just consistent, like a slow metronome keeping time for the water. If you imagine the lake in cross-section, you can picture it. Dark surface above, soft plant shapes below, and the swan's webbed feet moving like small fans. Each push sends the swan forward and sends ripples outward. The ripples widen, thin, and fade. The lake accepts them, holds them for a moment, and then smooths itself again. It's a gentle lesson. Calm is often made from tiny, steady actions that don't need to be seen. The swan's paddling is practical. Webbed feet spread wide, moving through water with the kind of efficiency that looks like grace. And because the work stays hidden, the swan keeps its quiet dignity, like someone gliding across a room while their socks are secretly doing all the traction. There's something softly comforting about that. You can be doing small work beneath the surface and still look calm on the outside. You can be managing, adjusting, settling, without needing to announce it to anyone. As the swan moves, its wake forms behind it in two faint lines. Those lines spread out like gentle parentheses around the swan's path. The lake seems to say, yes, you passed through here, and yes, it was soft. Now, let your attention follow those ripples. Let them widen in your mind until they thin out into stillness. If thoughts are still moving in you, let them move the way ripples move, quietly outward, gradually smoothing. And if your body feels restless, you can borrow the swan's method. Small, steady adjustments. A softer jaw, a lowered shoulder, a breath that takes its time. Nothing dramatic, just the kind of minor corrections that help a body return to comfort. The swan does not race the lake. It works with it. It presses gently against the water and lets the water carry it back. A partnership, not a struggle. A rhythm, not a demand. So tonight, as we drift onward, remember the hidden paddles. Remember that peace can be built from the smallest motions, and you too can glide forward into rest, quietly, steadily, until the ripples fade. There are moments on the lake when the swan seems to do almost nothing. It floats, it drifts. It holds a posture that suggests it has never once worried about being productive. And somehow, the world continues around it as if this is exactly what the evening was meant for. A swan resting on water, like a slow thought in a quiet mind. If you watch long enough, you begin to notice that almost nothing, is actually a skill. The swan adjusts its balance in tiny ways, so small you might miss them. A subtle shift of weight, a gentle tilt of the body, a slow turn of the head as if checking the lake's mood. The movements are minimal, but they are precise. The swan is not asleep exactly. It is simply resting inside wakefulness, as though it has found the most comfortable way to be present. And there is something gently funny about how seriously it commits to this. Some animals look busy just standing still. The mute swan looks like it is practicing relaxation with professional dedication. If it had a resume, it might list floating calmly as a specialty, with endorsements from reeds, ripples, and moonlight. But beneath the humor is something soothing. The swan is allowed to rest because the environment supports it. Water holds it up, feathers keep it warm. The lake offers food nearby. The shoreline offers shelter. The swan's whole life is shaped around the idea that slow is not a mistake. It is a strategy. When you're trying to fall asleep, your mind can sometimes treat stillness like a test. It wonders if you're doing it correctly. It asks for progress. It checks the clock in the background. The swan does none of that. It simply drifts. It lets time pass. It lets the lake be the lake. It lets the night become the night. And in that permission, the swan becomes an example of how to soften without forcing. So as you listen, you can try a small experiment. Allow yourself to do almost nothing too. Not nothing as in empty. Almost nothing as in gentle. As in resting your attention. As in letting your thoughts become fewer and farther apart, like lily pads with dark water between them. If a thought arrives, let it float. If it drifts away, let it go. If it stays, let it stay quietly, without needing to turn it into a problem. You can be like the swan, awake enough to notice, relaxed enough not to react. The art of doing almost nothing is not laziness. It is rest. It is recovery. It is the body remembering that it belongs to the night, and tonight you belong to it too. At some point, the swan drifts toward the shallows, and the lake becomes a quiet pantry. Feeding for a mute swan is not a dramatic event. It is a calm routine, more like a slow stroll through a familiar kitchen than a hunt for something rare. The swan approaches a patch of underwater plants, and with a gentle shift, it begins to graze. Sometimes the swan lowers its head and neck, dipping its bill under the surface. Sometimes it tips forward in a posture that looks almost comical, tail up, head down, like a graceful creature temporarily pretending to be a buoy. It is a little silly, in the sweetest way. Even elegance needs dinner. Under the water, the swan's bill finds stems and leaves, aquatic plants, soft algae, tender shoots, simple foods grown by light and time. The swan pulls gently, swallowing slowly, and then pauses as if to consider the next bite. No rush, no competition, just the steady rhythm of nourishment. This grazing connects the swan to the lake's wider living system. The plants grow because sunlight reaches the water, because minerals settle in the mud, because seasons turn and temperatures change. The lake is quietly productive, making food in slow cycles. And the swan is part of that cycle, eating, resting, moving, and returning again. If you imagine the underwater world, it feels like a soft garden. Stems sway with the water's motion. Tiny creatures move among leaves like small sparks of life. The mud holds everything in place, patient and dark. Even here, beneath the surface, the mood is not busy. It is steady. It is calm. And as the swan feeds, it becomes a reminder that routine can be comforting. We often think of routine as something that belongs to daytime, schedules, tasks, lists. But nature has routines too, and they are far gentler. The swan eats when it needs to. It rests when it can. It moves slowly toward shelter as light fades. It does not argue with its own needs. Tonight, you don't have to argue with yours either. If you need rest, you can let yourself rest. If you need a slower breath, you can let it arrive. If your mind wants to nibble on a few thoughts before it settles, you can let it, gently, without judgment, until it naturally loses interest and drifts toward quiet. The swan lifts its head from the water. A few droplets cling to its bill and fall back into the lake. Tiny, quiet splashes. Then it resumes drifting, satisfied for now. Feeding becomes just another calm chapter in a calm life, and listening to it can become just another gentle step towards sleep. After drifting and feeding, the swan turns inward as if preparing for the night. This is where preening begins, a slow, careful grooming ritual that looks almost like meditation. The swan bends its neck in a graceful curve and brings its bill to its feathers. It nibbles lightly along the edges, smoothing and aligning each strand. Feather by feather, it restores order. Preening is practical. Feathers need attention to stay waterproof and warm. But the way the swan does, it feels like more than maintenance. It feels like a bedtime routine, nature's version of washing your face, smoothing your blanket, and making the world feel settled. The bill moves in small, precise motions, a gentle pinch, a soft, combing action. The swan pauses, then continues, unhurried. The feathers respond like fine fabric, shifting into neat layers. Occasionally, the swan ruffles, fluffing its body so the feathers lift and fall back into place like a soft wave. There is something quietly satisfying about watching a creature take such calm care of itself. No hurry, no impatience, just attention. And the attention is kind, not harshly corrective, not anxious, simply steady. If you listen closely, you might imagine the sounds: a faint rustle of feathers, a whisper of movement, the quiet tapping of a bill. These are small noises, but they carry a soothing message. Things are being put in order. Even the swan's posture changes as it preens. It becomes rounder, softer, more tucked in. The neck folds into comfortable curves. The body seems to settle lower in the water, trusting the lake to hold it. And here, you can borrow the mood of the ritual. Let your own evening routine be simple. It doesn't have to be perfect. It only has to be soothing. You can imagine smoothing your thoughts the way the swan smooths its feathers, gently, one at a time, without pulling too hard. If a thought is out of place, you don't have to fight it. You can simply notice it, and then let it lie flat again. If your mind feels tangled, you can breathe through it, patiently. Preening is not about forcing, it is about easing. The swan finishes a few last careful strokes, then it pauses, as if checking its own comfort. A final fluff, a small shake, and the feathers settle like a quiet snowfall. Now the swan looks ready, not for performance, not for anything public, just ready to rest. and you too can feel ready in the same gentle way. Not because everything is done, but because you are allowed to stop doing. Warmth on a cool evening becomes a kind of quiet treasure. For a mute swan, warmth is not only found in sunlight, it is found in feathers, many layers of them, arranged like a soft, living coat. Each feather overlaps the next, creating pockets of air that hold heat close to the body. It is a simple idea, repeated perfectly. Air trapped in softness becomes shelter. If you watch a swan at rest, you may see it fluff slightly, making itself rounder. The body looks larger for a moment, like a pillow taking a deeper breath. This fluffing is not dramatic. It's a small adjustment, a gentle way of inviting warmth to stay. Sometimes the swan tucks its head back, turning its neck into a quiet loop. The bill disappears into feathers, and the swan becomes a floating bundle of white, as if it has folded itself into comfort. The posture is so calm that it almost looks like the swan has turned into a peaceful idea rather than an animal. And it's hard not to feel sleepy when you see it, because the swan's resting shape resembles the shapes we make when we settle. Shoulders down, arms closer, chin slightly tucked. The body naturally finds ways to conserve warmth and ease. It doesn't need instruction. It already knows. Underneath the white feathers, there is also a layer of down, fine, soft, insulating. Down is like quiet engineering, light as air, yet incredibly protective. It turns cold wind into something less important. It makes night feel less sharp. The lake plays its part too. Water can hold heat and release it slowly, which means the swan floats in a steady temperature rather than abrupt changes. The lake becomes a thermal companion, smoothing the edges of the night. And as you listen, you can let that image support you. Imagine your own warmth settling. Perhaps you feel the weight of a blanket, or the warmth of a room, or the simple comfort of your own skin. You can treat warmth as permission, permission for muscles to loosen, permission for breathing to slow. If your body feels alert, you don't have to force it to relax. You can invite it the way feathers invite air, by making small spaces for comfort, a softer exhale, a longer pause, a gentle settling of the tongue in the mouth. The swan remains still, head tucked, body rounded, drifting so slowly it seems to be resting on time itself. The white feathers catch faint light and turn it into softness. Warmth under white wings is not loud. It is not exciting. It is simply the quiet truth that makes sleep possible. The world can be cool, and you can still be safe. The swan's neck is one of the lake's most graceful shapes. Long, smooth, and quietly expressive, it rises from the body like a slow curve drawn in air. Sometimes it forms an S shape, sometimes a deeper arc, sometimes a gentle bend that looks almost like a question mark. Soft punctuation on dark water. And it's fitting, in a way, because the swan's posture invites questions that do not need answers. What does it feel like to belong so completely to a place? To move without hurry? To let your body be both strong and calm at the same time? The swan does not ask these questions out loud, of course. It simply embodies them. The neck lifts slowly, turns slowly, lowers slowly. Even when the swan looks around, it does not snap its attention from one thing to another. It scans the world like a calm reader moving through a quiet page. When the neck lowers to the water, it becomes a bridge, connecting air and lake. The bill touches the surface and creates tiny circles that spread outward. The circles fade, and the swan continues, unbothered by the evidence of its own movement. Sometimes the swan draws its neck in, shortening that elegant line until it becomes compact and comfortable. Other times, it stretches it out as if tasting the air. The variety is gentle, never abrupt. It's as if the swan is always choosing the softest way to move. There is also a quiet sturdiness in that neck. It supports the swan's feeding, its preening, its attention to the world. It is flexible, but not fragile. It is a reminder that softness and strength can exist together, and often do. If your own mind feels stiff with thoughts, you can borrow the swan's flexibility. Let one thought lengthen into a slower form. Let another fold and tuck away. Let your attention move like the neck moves, curving rather than cutting, drifting rather than darting. This is how a sleep-inducing story works too. It doesn't push. It bends gently around the mind's edges, offering images and quiet facts, letting the listener decide how deeply to follow. The swan's neck becomes a calm symbol against the lake's dark surface, a white line that seems to write a slow sentence in the air. And the sentence feels simple. You can soften. You can take up less effort. You can rest in a shape that feels natural. For now, just watch the curve. Let it become a quiet guide. And if the question mark shape brings a question into your mind, let it arrive kindly, then let it float away, leaving only the gentle curve of stillness behind. Sleep on a lake looks different than sleep on land. On land, sleep often means stillness that is firm, a body resting on something solid. On water, rest can be softer, more yielding. The mute swan can sleep while floating, letting the lake hold it like a slow, steady cradle. Imagine the swan at night. The light has faded until the lake is a deep blue-black, with a faint sheen where the sky reflects. The shoreline is a quiet outline. The reeds stand like thin shadows, and the swan, white dimmed into silver, drifts in place or moves so slowly it feels like a dream. The swan's body remains buoyant because of its shape and its feathers, and because water offers support in every direction. That support is gentle. It does not press. It simply carries. When the swan settles into sleep, its posture changes in small ways. The neck may tuck back, bill nestled into feathers. The body rounds slightly, as if the swan is folding into warmth. The eyes close or half close, and the swan becomes a quiet, floating cloud. There may still be motion, but it is minimal. A slow drift, guided by faint currents. A tiny correction from hidden feet. A soft turn as the lake rotates the swan almost imperceptibly. The swan is resting inside motion, and the motion is so mild it feels like stillness. This can be comforting for a human mind, because we too can rest inside motion. Even as you drift toward sleep, your breath continues, your heart continues. The room may have small sounds, thoughts may pass like distant birds. None of that means you are failing to rest. It means you are alive, gently continuing. The swan does not demand perfect silence or perfect stillness. It rests anyway. It trusts the lake to hold it, and it lets the night be imperfect in quiet ways. Wind might shift, water might ripple, yet sleep still comes. So, if you find yourself noticing small movements in your own body, the rise of breath, the swallow of the throat, the shift of a hand, you can treat them like the swan's drift. They are part of resting, not an interruption. Picture the swan floating in the center of the lake, carried by dark water like a slow lullaby. The night air cools the feathers, and the feathers keep the warmth. The lake offers gentle support, and the swan accepts it without question. And you can accept support too, from your bed, from your blanket, from the surface beneath you, from the simple fact that you do not need to hold yourself up alone in this moment. You can let something else carry you. Tonight, sleep is not a sudden drop. It is a drift, and the swan shows you how. Sometimes the swan makes a choice that looks almost like a tiny joke. It stands or rests with one leg tucked up, hidden in feathers, while the other leg remains as the quiet support. This posture is common in many birds, and it has a practical purpose, reducing heat loss, conserving warmth, keeping the body comfortable. But it also looks, from a human perspective, like a calm statement. I am relaxed enough to use only half the equipment. The swan's tucked leg disappears into the soft white layers, and the bird becomes a little more compact, a little more contained. It is a small act of economy, a gentle reminder that nature often prefers the easiest, effective option. And that idea can be soothing at bedtime. We sometimes treat rest as something that must be earned through effort. We try to force our minds into quiet, as if sleep responds to pressure. But the swan does not pressure itself. It simply reduces what it uses. One leg instead of two. Less exposure, more warmth. Less effort, more ease. The lake supports this too. When the swan is on the water, it can tuck a leg and let buoyancy do much of the work. When it is on shore, it balances carefully and trusts its own body. Either way, the message stays the same. Comfort comes from small, intelligent adjustments. So tonight, you can try the swan's method in your own way. Not literally tucking a leg, though you're welcome to if it helps. But mentally, you can tuck away what you don't need right now. You can tuck away the need to solve, the need to plan, the need to revisit a conversation, the need to be impressive. Those can all be folded into the soft feather pile of tomorrow, where they can stay warm and safe until you return. And you can keep only what supports rest, breathing, warmth, the sense of being held, the slow imagery of the lake and the swan. One thought at most that feels comforting, like a small candle in the distance, not a spotlight. The swan, balanced and calm, looks perfectly content. It does not worry whether the posture looks strange. It does not overthink the technique. It simply rests in the way that works. There is something freeing in that simplicity. If you catch your mind trying too hard, imagine the swan gently tucking one leg up and saying, without words, less effort is allowed. Let that idea settle into your muscles. Let it soften the brow, loosen the shoulders, slow the breath. One leg, less effort. A small choice that makes the night kinder. And if sleep arrives gradually, that's fine. The swan does not rush into rest. It simply stays comfortable until rest becomes inevitable. Beneath the swan's calm drift is a quiet abundance. A lake may look simple from the surface, dark water, soft reflections, a few ripples and reeds, but underneath it holds a living pantry that grows slowly, season by season. Aquatic plants stretch their stems upward. Algae and tiny organisms form the beginning of food chains. leaves and shoots sway like underwater curtains. This is the swan's gentle buffet. Mute swans often feed on submerged vegetation, tender leaves, stems, and roots. The swan's long neck helps it reach down into the water, turning feeding into a slow, precise search through soft plant beds. The bill pulls gently, and the swan's body remains steady above, floating like a quiet platform. The lake offers these foods because sunlight reaches it. Even in daytime, when the water looks still, light travels down into the shallows, touching leaves and encouraging growth. The mud below holds nutrients, dark and patient. Water plants do their quiet work, turning light into living matter. Over time, the lake becomes a calm system that feeds many creatures, birds, fish, insects, and more. And the swan is one of the most visible guests at this buffet. But nothing here feels like taking. It feels like participating. The swan eats what the lake can grow. The plants regrow. The seasons rotate. The buffet remains gentle and ongoing, not depleted by hurry. This is one of nature's most soothing patterns, enoughness created by patience. If you are listening at night, the idea of enough can be especially comforting. Enough rest, enough time, enough quiet, enough softness to let the day end. You do not need a dramatic transformation tonight. You only need enough easing for your body to settle. The lake does not produce its buffet all at once. It grows it slowly. It renews it steadily. And that can be a model for how sleep works too. Sleep is not a switch you flip. It is a gradual replenishment offered in cycles. So imagine the lake as a calm provider. Imagine its underwater garden swaying gently, always moving a little, always alive. Imagine the swan visiting the same places, returning to familiar patches, finding food where it knows food will be. Familiarity is part of comfort. Perhaps you can give yourself something familiar now, a steady breath, a repeating image, a soothing phrase. Let it be your own small buffet for the mind, something simple and nourishing that does not stir you awake. The swan lifts its head, droplets falling back into the water like quiet punctuation. Then it drifts on, leaving the underwater garden to continue its slow work. And you can drift on too, fed by calm, guided by softness, held by a world that understands slow renewal. On the lake, space has a gentle etiquette. Mute swans often keep a respectful distance from other swans and from other creatures on the water. This is not about drama. It's more like personal space, a quiet bubble that moves with the body, a gentle boundary drawn in ripples. If you watch two swans drifting, you may notice how they glide past each other with measured calm. They do not crowd. They do not rush into the other's path. They angle slightly, adjust speed, and pass like slow boats in a wide harbor. The lake gives them room, and they use it with quiet confidence. Even when a swan holds a particular area, near a nest site or a favored feeding patch, the boundary can still be subtle. It's often expressed through posture and presence rather than commotion. A raised neck, a slight turn, a steady look. The message is soft but clear. This space is part of my comfort. There is something soothing about boundaries that do not feel harsh. A boundary does not have to be a wall. It can be a quiet line that helps life stay calm. On the lake, boundaries reduce stress and help routines remain smooth. Each creature moves in ways that allow others to move too. The whole scene becomes a slow choreography of shared space, and that can be a gentle lesson for nighttime. When you're trying to sleep, your mind sometimes forgets boundaries. It lets the day spill into the bed. It invites tomorrow's tasks to sit on the pillow. It allows old memories to wander in unannounced. But you can create a soft boundary the way a swan does. Not with force, with calm presence. You can decide, this space is for rest. You can let everything else remain outside the shoreline of this moment. Your bed becomes your lake. Your blanket becomes your reeds. The night becomes your quiet companion. If an anxious thought approaches, you don't have to fight it. You can simply acknowledge it and let it drift at a distance, as if you are giving it its own portion of water, far enough away that you can still feel calm. Soft boundaries are kind. They protect rest without turning the night into a battle. The swan shows us that holding space can be gentle and dignified. It can be as simple as drifting a little to the side, as steady as keeping your breathing slow, as quiet as returning to the same soothing image again and again. Two swans pass in the darkening lake. Their wakes overlap briefly, then separate. The water smooths itself behind them as if nothing was ever interrupted. And in that smoothness, you can feel your own inner boundary settling, quietly, naturally, making room for sleep. On some evenings, the lake holds not just one swan, but a small floating story. A pair may drift together in a way that feels quietly coordinated, like two slow sentences written side by side. Their bodies keep a gentle closeness. Their wakes overlap. Their movements seem to agree, even when they are not perfectly matched. One turns slightly, the other follows. One pauses, the other lingers. It is not a performance. It is simply familiarity, two lives sharing the same calm route. And when there are young swans, cygnets, the scene becomes even softer. The family shapes gather on the water like a small constellation of white and gray. The adults remain steady and solid, their white feathers dimming into moonlit silver. The cygnets float nearby, fuzzier, smaller, and a little less certain about how to look composed while drifting. Their bodies bob in tiny motions. Their heads move with curious pauses. They are learning the lake not by studying it, but by being near it, by following the adults through the gentle patterns of the day. The lake becomes a classroom without walls. There are no lessons delivered loudly. There is no urgency. The adults show the path by taking it. They show where food can be found by drifting toward it. They show where shelter lies by settling near reeds or quiet edges. The cygnets absorb these roots the way sleep absorbs you, gradually, without effort. There is also a quiet warmth in the way families hold together on water. The closeness is not always tight. It's flexible, like a loose circle that can expand and contract depending on the moment. When the lake is open and calm, the family may spread out slightly. When the world feels cooler or more exposed, they may draw closer, bodies becoming a cluster of soft shapes. It's a gentle kind of belonging, and watching it can invite your own sense of belonging to settle. Because the night can sometimes make us feel alone, especially when the mind is awake. But nature reminds us that life often moves in small communities, pairs, groups, families, quiet gatherings that drift together through dark water. If you imagine this family now, you can let the scene become soothing rather than informational. You don't need details, you only need the mood. A few feathered bodies on a quiet lake, moving slowly as if guided by the same lullaby. The adults glide with calm. The cygnets drift with soft enthusiasm, and the lake holds them all, unbothered, steady. Let that image do what it does best. Soften the edges of thought. Let it remind you that comfort can be shared, even if it is shared only through a story. Tonight, you are not being asked to do anything alone. You are simply being carried by the night, by the lake, and by the slow family shapes moving quietly across the water. If mute swans are like drifting moonlight, then cygnets are like small, floating clouds that haven't yet learned to be serious. They are soft, round, and gently awkward, little boats with feathers, still figuring out how to glide with dignity. Their fuzz looks like it was designed specifically for cozy weather and bedtime stories. And when they move, they often bob slightly, as if the lake is teaching them balance one tiny wobble at a time. Cygnets drift close to the adults, but their attention wanders in small, curious ways. A patch of reeds becomes interesting. A ripple becomes a mystery. A floating leaf becomes a tiny event. Their heads tilt. They pause. They peck lightly at the surface as if tasting the idea of water. They are not dramatic creatures. Their curiosity is quiet and gentle, more like a child exploring a calm room than anything fast or urgent. There is something soothing about watching young animals learn without pressure. Cygnets don't need to get it right immediately. They try, they copy, they rest, they try again. If they drift slightly off course, they drift back. If they get tired, they stop. Their learning is woven into rest, not separated from it. And there is also a small, tender humor in how seriously they take themselves. A cygnet may puff up its fuzz, as if becoming bigger will help it feel more confident. It may stretch its tiny wings in a way that looks more like a yawn than a flight plan. It may attempt a graceful glide and end up with a slightly zigzag path, like a sleepy pencil line. The lake, of course, does not judge. The lake simply holds. And holding is one of the most comforting things a world can do. If you imagine cygnets tucked close to their parents, you may notice how the group becomes a moving quilt. White adults, gray young, all drifting together. The difference in color feels gentle, like night and morning sharing the same horizon. The cygnets learn the lake's rhythm by living inside it. They learn where to find food by watching the adults feed. They learn where to rest by following the adults toward calmer edges. They learn that the lake is not something to conquer, but something to float with. And you can borrow that approach tonight. You don't have to force your mind into sleep. You can learn sleep the way cygnets learn the lake, through soft repetition, through gentle imitation, through allowing your body to settle when it's ready. If a thought appears, let it be like a floating leaf, noticed, then released. If you feel yourself drifting, let it happen. If you wobble back into wakefulness, that's fine. Drift back again. No pressure. Cygnets are little boats with feathers, and they make the lake feel even more like a lullaby. And as they drift, soft, fuzzy, and unhurried, you can let your own thoughts become fuzzy at the edges too. dissolving quietly into rest. On quiet water, even movement can be a form of kindness. When an adult swan glides forward, it leaves a wake behind it, 2 gentle lines, a subtle opening through the lake's surface. The water parts, then settles, then parts again as the swan continues. And often, the cygnets follow directly in that path, as if the parent is making the world a little easier to travel. This is one of the lake's soft miracles, a route created by calm. The cygnets drift behind, small bodies tucked into the space where resistance is lower. It's not dramatic. It's not a rescue. It's simply physics made tender, movement shaping the water so the following becomes smoother. The parent swan doesn't have to explain. The path exists, and the cygnets slip into it naturally. There is something deeply comforting about that image, because it suggests that guidance does not always arrive as advice. Sometimes guidance arrives as an example. A parent swan glides steadily, and the young learn that steadiness is possible. The wake becomes a quiet invitation. Come this way, it's calmer here. On the lake, this shared movement looks like a slow procession, one swan leading, the others following, all of them drifting as if in agreement with the night. The water carries them. The reeds stand nearby like soft witnesses. The whole scene feels as if it was designed to quiet the mind. And as you listen, you might notice how much your own mind enjoys having a gentle path to follow. When the mind is left alone at night, it can wander into sharp places, old conversations, future worries, endless lists. But when you give it a wake, something calm and steady, it often relaxes. It becomes willing to follow. It doesn't have to invent routes. It can simply drift. So tonight, let this story be your parent's wake. Let it open the water in front of you. Let it make a smooth channel through the dark. You don't have to lead yourself into sleep with effort. You only have to follow the calm direction already laid out. Slower breathing, softer attention, gentler thoughts. If you like, you can imagine your breath making a wake too. Each inhale glides forward. Each exhale trails behind, widening and fading. The next breath follows the calm path of the last. Your body learns that it can settle, one cycle at a time. The swan family continues across the lake. The adults keep the pace slow enough to be followed. The cygnets remain close, riding that wake like a small, floating trust. And trust is part of rest. Trust that the bed holds you. Trust that the night is allowed to be quiet. Trust that you don't have to solve everything before you sleep. Riding the parent's wake is simply following a calmer path already made. And tonight, you are welcome to do the same, drifting gently behind the story, letting it carry you towards stillness. A swan's home is not a towering structure. It is not high above the ground. It does not sparkle. It does not announce itself. Instead, it rests low and quiet near the water's edge, built from ordinary things: reeds, grasses, stems, and whatever the shoreline offers in gentle abundance. The nest is a soft bowl of patience. You can imagine it tucked among reeds where the lake's voice is quieter. The plants around it create a natural curtain, thin, rustling, protective. The ground is damp, the air is cool, and the nest sits like a small island of intention, a place where warmth can gather. The materials are simple, but the effect is comforting. Reeds laid in layers, grasses woven loosely, stems arranged so they hold shape without becoming rigid. The nest is not perfect. It is practical. It is soft enough to receive, structured enough to support. And there is something deeply soothing about that combination. Because home, in nature, often means exactly this: a place that holds you without making demands. Even the location is chosen for calm, near water, but not too exposed. Close enough that the swan can return easily. Hidden enough that the world feels quieter. The lake is nearby like a steady companion. The reeds provide privacy, not isolation. The nest becomes a gentle meeting point between land and water, between movement and stillness. If you consider the nest as an image for bedtime, it fits beautifully. Your bed is a kind of nest, not made of reeds perhaps, but made of layers, sheets, blankets, pillows, warmth, a soft bowl of comfort that receives you, a place where your body can stop holding itself so tightly, a small, sheltered pocket in the world where you can simply be. And like the swan's nest, your bed doesn't have to be perfect to work. It only has to be kind. When the swan settles near the nest, its posture changes. It becomes more grounded. The neck lowers. The body rounds. The bird appears less like a drifting statue and more like a quiet presence focused on warmth and stillness. The nest is part of the swan's slow rhythm, built not in a rush, but over time. A little gathering, a little arranging, a little returning. Not a single event, but a gentle process. And sleep is like that too. It often comes from accumulation. One calming breath, then another. One softened thought, then another. One small release in the shoulders, then the jaw, then the eyes. So tonight, let the image of a low, soft home settle into you. A nest near the lake, reeds moving gently, water breathing nearby, a place built from simple things, held together by patience. You are allowed to be held in the same way, quietly, softly, until rest finds you. The swan does not wake to an alarm, it wakes to light. Day begins not as a sudden command, but as a gradual change in the air. The sky shifts from deep blue to a softer shade. The lake reflects those changes with quiet accuracy. Mist may hover for a while and then thin out. Birds begin to sound more present. Plants seem to lift slightly, as if they are listening. For the swan, time is measured in these gentle gradients. Morning means a cooler surface and a calmer shoreline. It may mean feeding in the shallows, where underwater plants are easiest to reach. It may mean slow movement along familiar edges, revisiting places the swan knows well, not because it is trapped in routine, but because familiarity is efficient and soothing. Midday brings brighter glare on the water. The lake looks sharper, the reflections clearer. The swan may drift more, rest more, or move to different patches depending on warmth and comfort. But even then, the pace remains unhurried. The swan doesn't appear to maximize the day. It simply lives inside it. And then evening begins, as it always does, quietly. The light lowers, shadows lengthen, sounds soften again. The lake becomes a darker mirror. The swan's white feathers take on a silvery tone, and the whole scene begins to feel like a lullaby returning. This rhythm, light to dark, dark to light, holds a kind of reassurance. It says, you do not have to invent time. Time already moves. You do not have to force your body into a pattern. Your body already knows patterns. Wake when the world brightens. Rest when the world dims. Even if modern life sometimes blurs these cues, the deeper rhythm remains inside you. Tonight, you can let your mind remember that. Let the day be over. Let the light be low. Let your nervous system recognize the simple signal. It is time to soften. If your thoughts try to hold on to daytime concerns, you can gently return to the image of the swan measuring time by light. No schedules, no deadlines, just a steady turning of the world that continues without effort. Imagine the swan drifting as evening deepens. Its movements become slower, not because it is forced, but because the environment invites it. The air cools, the water smooths, the shoreline becomes a quiet outline. The swan responds by becoming quieter too, and you can respond in the same way. Allow your breathing to become your light. Each inhale brightens slightly, each exhale dims slightly. The exhale becomes dusk, and the inhale becomes a soft dawn, over and over, gently cycling until your inner world settles into night. A day measured in light does not rush. It simply changes, slowly and reliably. And tonight, you can let that reliability hold you until you drift into sleep as naturally as the lake drifts into darkness. Weather does not lecture the lake. It simply arrives. A light wind comes first, almost politely, brushing the surface as if testing whether the water is ready to move. The reeds respond with a soft sway. The lily pads shift their positions by a fraction, and the mute swan, still pale against the darkening blue, continues drifting as though it expected this small change all along. On a lake, weather is not an interruption. It's a quiet instructor. Wind teaches the value of turning slightly, of choosing a calmer angle. A swan may drift with the breeze, then adjust with a slow paddle beneath the surface. Not a struggle, not a complaint, just a gentle correction, the way you adjust a blanket when it slips. Rain, when it comes, can be even softer. At first, it is a few scattered drops that make tiny rings on the water. Then a light pattern of circles begins to appear, countless small ripples, overlapping, fading, returning. The lake becomes a living texture, a quilt of motion. The swan rides it without drama, feathers sealed and orderly, body steady, as if the whole bird were made for this exact moment. And cold, cool evening air or early season chill teaches the swan the simplest skill of all: conserve. The swan fluffs its feathers slightly. It tucks its head. It chooses stillness as a strategy. It rests in the sheltered pockets near reeds. These are not bold decisions. They are quiet, intelligent responses to the world as it is. Weather teaches acceptance in slow motion, not the kind of acceptance that gives up, but the kind that relaxes into reality. The wind is here, so the swan turns. The rain is here, so the swan floats. The cold is here, so the swan gathers warmth. Nothing is forced. Nothing is urgent. The lake and the swan cooperate with what arrives, and that can be comforting at bedtime, because your mind may be trying to control the weather inside you. Thoughts, feelings, restlessness, the afterglow of the day. It may want perfect conditions for sleep, but sleep often arrives when you stop demanding perfection and begin responding gently to what's present. If there is restlessness, you can soften around it. If there is a thought that keeps returning, you can let it pass like light rain, noticed, then gone. If your body feels warm or cool, you can adjust and settle. without turning it into a project. Tonight, let weather be your teacher too, not with instructions, with permission. Permission to adapt slowly, permission to make small changes, permission to let the moment be imperfect and still safe. The lake receives wind and rain and cold, and then, sooner or later, it returns to a smoother surface. The swan receives the same and remains calm, drifting on. And you can drift on as well, quietly learning that the night does not need to be controlled. It only needs to be met gently. If you listen to a lake at night, you may notice that the quiet has layers, not silence, layers. There's the soft, constant presence of water, even when it hardly moves. A faint lapping along the shore, a tiny tap against a stem, a ripple sliding past a lily pad like a whispered sentence. These sounds don't demand your attention, they simply offer it a place to rest. Then there are the reeds. Reeds have their own language, a light brushing when the breeze passes through, a gentle ticking when thin stems touch, a slow creak when one leans and returns. It can sound like nature tidying up quietly in the background. And somewhere within those layers, the mute swan becomes part of the music. A swan does not sing a loud melody. It contributes small, practical sounds, a feather shifting, a soft exhale, the subtle push of water against its body. When it glides, the sound is like fabric moving through air, barely audible, but soothing when you notice it. If you imagine the swan nearby, you can picture the wake behind it, two quiet lines widening and fading. And if you listen with your mind, you can almost hear those lines, like the lake-making room, then smoothing itself again. This is what makes a soundscape different from noise. Noise insists. A soundscape invites. At bedtime, the mind often relaxes when it has something gentle to focus on. A steady hum, a repeated pattern, the simple rhythm of a natural world that doesn't rush. The lake offers that. It offers the kind of sound that does not increase urgency, but dissolves it. Even the distant sounds help. A far-off night bird calling once, then pausing. Insects humming low, as if keeping the evening's heartbeat. Perhaps a faint rustle of leaves higher up, where the breeze still moves. Nothing forms a dramatic story. Everything stays slow, steady, and calm. And in this layered quiet, your breathing can begin to synchronize. Inhale, like a small wave rising. Exhale, like it's settling back into shore. The swan's world is rhythmic, and your body is rhythmic too. You don't have to force it. You can simply notice it and let it smooth you. There's a gentle humor in how the swan seems to belong to this soundscape so naturally. It floats as though it has memorized the lake's playlist. It preens as though it knows the exact volume needed for night. It drifts with the confidence of something that never worries about being too quiet or not quiet enough. It just fits. So tonight, let the soundscape hold you. Let water and reeds and soft animal rhythms become a wide, calm blanket for the mind. If thoughts arise, let them be small and distant, like a single call across the lake. If your attention wanders, guide it back to these gentle layers. And as the swan glides through the hush, allow your own thoughts to thin out until the quiet becomes less like emptiness and more like comfort. A lake remembers, but not in words. It remembers in softened paths, a channel through the reeds where bodies drift again and again. a shallow feeding spot where plants grow back each season, as if keeping a quiet appointment. A familiar curve of shoreline where the water stays calmer, where the wind is kinder, where resting feels easier. These are the lake's memories, written in repetition, not in ink. The Mute Swan is part of that remembering. It returns to the places that feel right, not with a dramatic sense of destiny, but with the calm intelligence of familiarity. A lake is a landscape you learn with your body. The thickness of reeds, the depth of water, the texture of mud beneath shallows. The swan moves through these familiar zones as if following a soft map no one else can see. Sometimes, the lake remembers the day too. The sun has been there, the wind has been there, rain may have stitched circles into the surface. And now, night arrives, and the lake slowly releases what it held. Heat, light, movement, until everything becomes quieter. This release is gentle. It's like letting a hand unclench. And that can feel comforting, because you are also a place that holds the day. You carry conversations, sounds, tasks, small pressures. Even if you did nothing big, you still absorb the world. And at night, you have the same option the lake has, to release the day gradually, without a struggle. Memory doesn't have to be heavy. On the lake, memory can be a soft familiarity, a return to what is known, a recognition that cycles come back around. Reeds grow, die back, and grow again. Water levels rise and fall. The same moon returns to the same sky, and the same swan-shaped calm returns to the same water. If you imagine the swan drifting now, you may notice how it carries memory in its body. The ease of its glide suggests practice. The quiet precision of its feeding suggests experience. The careful preening suggests routine. These are living memories, skills repeated until they become restful. And that can be a model for how you fall asleep. Sleep often comes not because you win against wakefulness, but because you return to familiar cues. Dim light, slower breath, a quiet story, a safe bed. Your body remembers what to do, even when your mind doubts it. So tonight, let your memory be gentle. Let it be less about replaying and more about returning. Returning to the sensation of your breath. Returning to the feeling of being supported. Returning to the image of the lake, holding its own calm history in the shape of ripples that fade. The lake remembers by smoothing, by renewing, by continuing. And you can remember the night the same way, by letting yourself drift back into rest as naturally as water returns to stillness. The lake is not a single thing. It is a quiet collaboration. Even when it looks still, it is full of relationships. Plants turning light into living matter, tiny creatures feeding and being fed, water moving nutrients from one place to another, reeds filtering and sheltering, birds resting and drifting and grazing. No one in this system gives a speech. No one coordinates with a clipboard. And yet, the whole place holds together with a kind of calm intelligence. Not an intelligence with a face, an intelligence made of balance. Aquatic plants grow in the shallows, offering food and cover. Insects skim the surface or move among stems. Fish and other small creatures slip through underwater shadows. Decomposition happens quietly in the mud, returning old material into new possibility. The lake is always recycling, always adjusting, always continuing, and the Mute Swan fits into this like a slow, elegant punctuation mark. It grazes on vegetation, trimming here and there, moving on, letting regrowth happen. It stirs the water gently with its feet. It carries small bits of lake life in its routines, plant matter, tiny droplets, the invisible scent of water. The swan isn't in charge, yet its life affects the lake, and the lake affects the swan. That mutual influence is part of the system's intelligence. There is something reassuring about a world that can coordinate without hurry. An ecosystem doesn't need to do everything at once. It relies on slow processes, sunlight warming water, seasons shifting growth, gentle movement distributing nutrients. The lake's intelligence is patient. It doesn't force outcomes. It allows them. And at bedtime, that patience can feel like permission. You do not need to manage every thought. You do not need to fix everything before you rest. Your mind, like an ecosystem, can regulate itself when given the right conditions. Darkness, safety, steady breathing, a soft story to follow. Sleep is not a command, it is an emergence. If your thoughts feel scattered, you can imagine them as different species in the lake. One thought is a reed. It stands quietly at the edge. Another is a ripple. It moves and fades. Another is a lily pad. It floats, present, but not demanding. You don't have to eliminate them. You only have to let them settle into a calm arrangement. The lake's intelligence is not loud. It is steady. It is the quiet cooperation of many small parts, making one soothing whole. And when you picture the swan drifting through that living system, you can feel how natural it is to belong to something larger without effort. Tonight, you belong to the night's ecosystem of rest, breath, warmth, stillness, dim light, slow imagery. These are your gentle collaborators. They don't need you to perform. They only need you to allow. The lake continues its calm work. The swan continues its slow drift. And your body, supported by quiet systems older than thought, can continue towards sleep, patiently, intelligently, and softly. The Swan is a poem written in practical lines. Everything about it feels gentle, but nothing is accidental. The broad body sits low in water, stable and buoyant. The feathers overlap in careful layers, holding warmth and keeping water out. The long neck reaches into the lake's hidden garden, allowing the swan to feed without rushing. Even the webbed feet, unseen most of the time, are perfectly shaped for slow, steady travel. This is adaptation, but it doesn't feel like engineering. It feels like quiet poetry. Not the kind of poetry that tries to impress, the kind that fits. The swan's whiteness can look like pure beauty, but it is also a kind of communication, an unmistakable presence on dark water, a clear silhouette in low light. The swan's calm posture looks like elegance, but it also reduces wasted motion. The swan's routines look like leisure, but they are also survival in its gentlest form. Feed, preen, rest, repeat. Nature often adapts by smoothing the rough edges. Over long stretches of time, small changes settle into bodies the way evening settles into a lake. Not suddenly, not loudly, simply through repetition and fit. A feather that sheds water a little better, a shape that floats a little more efficiently, a behavior that conserves energy. Each small improvement becomes part of the quiet design, and because it happens slowly, it can feel like peace. At night, your own body is also an adaptive system. It learns patterns, it remembers cues, it adjusts to the environment. Light, sound, temperature, safety. If you have struggled with sleep before, that struggle can feel personal, as if your body is doing something wrong. But often, the body is simply adapting to conditions that have become noisy or bright or demanding. So tonight, we offer it gentle conditions again, like returning a swan to a calm lake, a quieter room, a softer voice, slower images, the permission to stop performing and simply exist. These are the conditions under which your body's quiet adaptations can return. The swan's adaptation is visible in every soft detail. It can float for long periods because water holds it, and because its body knows how to accept that support. It can stay warm because feathers trap air. It can keep those feathers effective because it preens carefully, distributing protective oils like a slow, nightly ritual. Everything is maintained through calm attention, and you can mirror that. You don't need dramatic solutions tonight. You can make small adjustments that feel kind, a softer exhale, a looser brow, a slower pace of thought. These are tiny adaptations, and they matter. They accumulate. Adaptation as quiet poetry means living in a way that fits the world gently. The swan fits the lake fits the night, and you can fit this moment too, by allowing yourself to become simpler, softer, and more still, until sleep feels less like something you chase and more like something you slowly become. The swan does not seem impressed by speed. It glides across the lake with the calm confidence of something that has never needed to prove anything to anyone. Its movement is steady, measured, and almost ceremonial, like a slow bow to the water that holds it. And watching that pace can feel like watching a new definition of success. Not faster, not louder, not more, just softer. Slowness in the swan's world is not a delay. It is a preference. The lake rewards it. Water is a place where rushing wastes energy. Currents shift, plants sway, sounds travel. Everything feels more comfortable when it is approached gently. And the swan responds as if it understands this deeply, as if it has learned that the easiest way to live is to match the lake's rhythm. If you imagine the swan at night, you can see how slowness becomes serenity. A few soft paddles beneath the surface, a small wake behind the body, the water smoothing again and again, as if it enjoys returning to stillness. Even preening is slow, bill combing feathers with patient attention. Feeding is slow, neck dipping, bill pulling, pauses in between. Nothing is hurried. And because nothing is hurried, everything looks calm. There is a quiet humor in this too. The swan's slow pace can look like a deliberate lifestyle choice, like it has read the latest trend in wellness and decided, yes, I will be a floating relaxation influencer. But beneath that gentle joke is something meaningful. The swan's slowness is functional. It conserves energy. It reduces unnecessary motion. It keeps the body warm and steady. It makes rest easier to reach. And that can be a bedtime lesson. You do not need to race into sleep. You do not need to get there quickly. Sleep, like the swan's drift, often arrives when you match the environment's pace: dim light, quiet air, softer thoughts. If you try to rush sleep, the mind stays alert. It checks progress. It asks questions. It tightens its grip. But if you allow slowness, the mind loosens naturally. So tonight, let yourself move slowly inside. Let your breathing slow down until it feels like the swan's wake, steady, widening, fading. Let your thoughts slow down until they feel like reeds swaying, present but not urgent. If a thought arrives that feels sharp, imagine it entering the lake. The water softens everything. The lake doesn't fight the shape. It smooths it over time. Your mind can do that too if you give it patience. The serenity of slowness is not about doing less forever. It is about doing less now, when the night asks for it. And the swan answers the night beautifully, by drifting, by settling, by allowing time to pass without needing to fill it with effort. Let that serenity become contagious. Let it move from the swan to the lake, from the lake to your listening, from your listening to your breath, and from your breath to sleep, slowly, naturally, like a lullaby that never hurries its own ending. The lake is never exactly the same lake for long. It changes the way a book changes, page by page, slowly enough that you might not notice until you look back. The light shifts across weeks. The air cools or warms. Plants thicken, fade, and return. And the mute swan moves through these changes with a calm steadiness that feels like quiet trust. Spring arrives softly. The shoreline becomes greener. The days lengthen. The water holds more light. Reeds grow taller and more flexible, and the lake begins to feel like it is waking up. For swans, spring can be a season of building, nesting, tending, staying near familiar edges. The mood is not hurried. It is simply attentive, as if the world is arranging itself carefully. Summer feels like long, bright hours. The lake can look wider under stronger sun. The plants are lush, feeding is steady and drifting is easy. The swan may spend more time resting on open water, letting the warmth do some of the work. The days stretch out, and the swan lives inside that stretch without needing to use it. Autumn comes with a quiet thinning. Light becomes gentler. Leaves on nearby trees shift color. The air cools in a way that feels clean. The lake's surface begins to hold darker reflections, and evenings arrive earlier. The swan responds by conserving more, resting more, drifting toward sheltered places as the world dims. Winter, when it touches the lake, brings a deeper stillness. The air becomes crisp. The water may feel heavier. The shoreline looks simpler, and the swan, wrapped in feathers, becomes even more devoted to warmth and quiet routines. Nothing dramatic, just a steady turning inward. Seasons turning like pages can feel comforting because they remind us change does not need to be forced. It happens, slowly, naturally, and life adjusts without panic. At night, you are also turning a page, not a page in a calendar, but a page in the day. The bright portion ends, the dark portion begins. Your body recognizes the shift. Your mind may resist it for a while, flipping back to earlier chapters, something you said, something you forgot, something that might happen. But the night does not need you to reread the day. It allows you to move forward. So tonight, imagine the day as a page you can set down, not thrown away, simply closed, and imagine sleep as the next page, blank and quiet, waiting gently. You do not have to write anything there. You only have to arrive. The swan continues through the seasons, through light and dark, through changes in wind and temperature. It remains a calm thread running through the lake's story. And you can be a calm thread too, moving from day to night, from wakefulness to rest, letting the page turn without a fight, letting the new quiet begin. Nature is full of gentle releasing. Leaves loosen from branches when their time is done. Flowers fade without apology. Water levels rise and fall. Light changes. Feathers molt, drifting away to be carried by wind or water. Nothing clings forever, and nothing needs to. The world stays beautiful anyway. The mute swan participates in this quiet practice of letting go. Over time, feathers wear and are replaced. Old feathers loosen and fall away, and new ones grow in. It is not dramatic. It is maintenance, renewal, the body making room for what comes next. The swan may look slightly untidy during certain moments of change, but even that feels natural, like the world saying, you don't have to look perfect to continue. The lake lets go too. A ripple appears, then fades. A breeze roughens the surface, then passes. Rain writes circles on the water, then stops, and the lake smooths itself again. The lake does not hold on to every disturbance. It receives, it releases, it returns to calm. And at bedtime, the idea of letting go becomes especially kind, because the mind often tries to carry the day into the night. It replays, it reviews, it holds on to small worries like stones. But sleep is easier when you release what you don't need in this moment, not by forcing yourself to stop thinking, not by wrestling the mind into silence, but by practicing nature's method, gentle loosening. Imagine your thoughts as feathers. Some can stay, some can drift away. If one loosens and floats off, you don't need to chase it. You can let it move on the way a feather moves, slowly, unpredictably, softly. And if another thought lands again, that's fine. You can release it again as many times as needed, without frustration. Letting go is not a single act. It is a repeated kindness. The swan doesn't mourn each feather. The lake doesn't mourn each ripple. They simply continue, and in continuing, they become calm again. If your body is holding tension, you can let go there too. A long exhale can loosen the shoulders. A softer jaw can loosen the face. A relaxed tongue can loosen the mouth. These are small releases, but they add up, like leaves falling one by one until a tree becomes lighter. And letting go doesn't mean losing something important. It means setting down what you can pick up later. Tomorrow can hold tomorrow's tasks. The morning can hold the next decisions. Tonight only needs to hold rest. Picture the swan drifting in low light, feathers smooth, body settled. Picture the lake receiving the swan's wake, then smoothing it away. Release, return, quiet. Letting go, the natural way, is not a command. It is a drift. And as you drift with this story, you can let the day fall away gently until only the calm remains. And sleep feels less like something you achieve and more like something you allow. Rest is not the opposite of life. Rest is one of life's most intelligent habits. On the lake, you can see this clearly. The mute swan drifts for long periods, not because it has nothing to do, but because stillness protects energy. It keeps the body warm. It keeps the mind calm. It prepares the swan for feeding, for preening, for the quiet continuation of its day. Rest is a strategy made visible. When the swan settles into a comfortable posture, the whole scene slows. The neck curves softly, the body rounds slightly, the feet move less, the lake supports more. It becomes hard to tell where the swan's stillness ends and the lake's stillness begins, and that blending is part of the lesson. Rest works best when you stop insisting on separation, when you allow yourself to be supported by your environment. The swan trusts the water. It trusts its feathers. It trusts the night. It doesn't stay tense just in case. It relaxes into what is steady. The lake offers that steadiness. The water holds the swan up without judgment. The shoreline offers shelter. The reeds reduce wind. The quiet soundscape lowers alertness. The whole ecosystem seems designed to say, yes, you can settle here, and your night can say that too. Your bed holds you. Your blanket holds warmth. The dim light tells the nervous system to soften. Your breath provides rhythm. The story provides a slow path. None of these are dramatic. They are simply supportive conditions, like the lake under a swan. Sometimes people feel guilty about rest, as if rest must be earned. But nature does not treat rest as a reward. Nature treats rest as maintenance, a necessary part of continuing. Without rest, the system becomes depleted. With rest, the system renews. The swan rests because it belongs to a world that understands cycles. Feed, rest, preen, rest. Drift, pause, drift again. Wake, then settle. The cycle is not a weakness, it is wisdom. So tonight, if your mind tries to measure your productivity, you can let it go. This is not the time for evaluation. This is the time for renewal. Imagine rest spreading through you like warmth. It begins in the chest as the breath slows. It moves to the shoulders as they drop. It reaches the face as the brow smooths. It settles into the hands as fingers soften. It arrives in the legs as heaviness becomes comfort. The swan floats, almost motionless, living proof that rest can be active in its own way, active in repair, active in conservation, active in calming. Rest as a living strategy means trusting that your body knows what to do when you stop interrupting it. And tonight, you are allowed to stop. You can drift, you can settle, you can let the night carry you the way water carries a swan until sleep arrives as the most natural strategy of all. There is a quiet mystery in how animals find familiar places. A lake can be wide. The shoreline can curve and repeat. The reeds can look like endless soft lines. And yet, the mute swan often returns to the same favored areas: sheltered edges, reliable feeding patches, quiet resting spots near the reeds. It does this without a map in the human sense. No paper, no marks, no names written down. Instead, the swan seems to carry home in its senses. The shape of the shoreline, the way wind moves in a certain corner, the depth of water under the body, the presence of particular plants, the subtle differences in scent, sound, and light. These cues are not loud, but they are consistent, and consistency becomes a guide. Home, in nature, is often a feeling of fit, a place where the body relaxes, where the routine becomes easy, where the mind does not have to stay alert in the same way. The swan recognizes these places and drifts toward them as evening arrives, as if guided by a soft internal pull. And that idea, returning home without maps, can be comforting for sleep, because sleep is also a place you return to. Not perfectly every night, perhaps, but repeatedly across your life. Your body has done it many times. It has entered that quiet territory where thoughts thin out and awareness becomes gentle. Even if you feel far from it right now, sleep is still part of your internal landscape. You do not need to chart a route to get there. You can rely on cues, like the swan does. Dim light is a cue. Slower breathing is a cue. A warm blanket is a cue. A familiar story cadence is a cue. Your nervous system recognizes these signals and begins to turn toward rest, the way a swan turns toward sheltered reeds. If your mind tries to navigate with too much effort, checking, calculating, worrying, you can remind it. This is not a place reached by force. This is a place reached by returning to the breath, returning to softness, returning to calm imagery. The swan drifts toward the shore where it feels safest. The lake grows darker. The reeds become a quiet outline. The swan's white feathers dim into silver gray, as if the bird is blending gently into night. In that blending, there is peace. Home is not always a location. Sometimes it is a state, the state of being held, supported, and allowed to rest. Tonight, you can return to that state without a map. You can let your body do what it knows how to do. You can let the night's cues guide you. You can trust the familiar route of slowing down. And if you drift away from the path for a moment, that's fine. The swan drifts too. It adjusts gently. It returns. No judgment. No urgency. Returning home without maps is simply trusting that the way back is inside you, quiet, steady, and waiting, like a sheltered part of the lake where the water is always calmer. We return, gently, to the question we set afloat near the reeds. What does stillness protect, and what does it reveal? We don't return to it like a puzzle. We return to it the way you return to a quiet place you trust, slowly, without needing to arrive at an answer all at once. The lake is still here, holding its dark mirror. The reeds are still standing, thin and patient. And the mute swan is still drifting, as if the night were made for unhurried things. Stillness protects the swan in practical ways. It protects warmth, tucked beneath feather layers. It protects energy, saved for feeding and for the small work of living. It protects the swan's balance, body low, supported by water, moving only as much as needed. The swan doesn't cling to motion just to prove it's awake. It lets the lake carry it, and that carrying is a kind of shelter. You can feel that shelter in your own body too, if you let yourself. Stillness can protect the parts of you that have been working all day, the muscles that held you upright, the mind that held your attention, the quiet internal systems that never stop their steady work. Stillness gives them a softer climate, a chance to loosen their grip, a chance to restore. And stillness reveals. It reveals tiny sounds that were always present. The faint lapping of water, the whisper of reeds, the soft shift of feathers. It reveals the shape of the swan's wake, widening and fading like a slow thought dissolving. It reveals how much the night contains even when it feels empty. And it reveals something else too, something quietly human. In stillness, you begin to notice what your mind is doing without needing to chase it. You notice thoughts arriving like small ripples. You notice how they move outward, thin, and fade when you don't hold them. You notice your own breath becoming the simplest rhythm in the room, steady, kind, dependable. The swan offers an answer without speaking. It shows that stillness can be a form of care, a form of wisdom, a way of living that doesn't demand constant proof of effort. The swan's calm posture is not a performance. It's a choice that makes the night softer. So tonight, You can choose stillness in small ways. You can let your shoulders rest. You can let your jaw unclench. You can let your thoughts be present without turning them into a task. You can let your breathing settle like evening wind. And the question can stay nearby, not to be solved, but to be held gently, like a smooth stone warmed by your palm. Stillness protects you. Stillness reveals you. And as we drift onward, let the lake show you, quietly, that both can be true at the same time. On the lake, conclusions don't arrive as announcements. They arrive like ripples, small, spreading, thinning, and then disappearing back into stillness. The water doesn't hold onto them. It lets them pass through, and then it becomes calm again. So tonight, our conclusions can be like that too. Not heavy, not final, just gentle understandings gathered from the swan's slow life and the lake's steady patience. One conclusion is simple: calm is often built. It isn't always something you find fully formed. It's something made from small choices, like hidden paddles beneath the swan, like feather layers arranged to trap warmth, like the slow habit of drifting toward shelter when the light grows low. Calm is a structure made of soft routines. Another conclusion is equally gentle. Boundaries can be kind. The swan keeps a respectful space, not as a threat, but as a comfort. It drifts with quiet dignity. It chooses its distance. It preserves its ease. And the lake seems to respect that, offering room without complaint. There's a peacefulness in that kind of boundary, one that doesn't shout, but still holds. And another conclusion: rest is not a failure of activity. Rest is part of the living pattern. Feeding, preening, drifting, sleeping, each belongs. The swan does not apologize for stillness. It treats stillness as normal. And in doing so, it makes the night feel less like a problem to solve and more like a place to settle. Perhaps the softest conclusion of all is this: you don't have to chase the night. The night arrives, the lake darkens, the sounds lower, the world becomes simpler. The swan responds by becoming simpler too. It doesn't try to stay bright. It doesn't try to stay busy. It lets dusk have its way. And the result is a kind of quiet harmony. If you bring that harmony into yourself, it might look like one small exhale that lasts a second longer. It might look like letting your eyes feel heavy without resisting. It might look like allowing a thought to float past without grabbing it. These are not dramatic changes. They are ripple changes. They widen gently, touch more of you, and then fade into a smoother state. If your mind keeps returning to something, you can treat it like a ripple as well. It appears, it travels, it softens, it fades. You do not need to stop it at the source. You only need to let the water of your attention remain gentle. The swan glides. The wake spreads behind it. The lake smooths itself again, as if returning to its favorite shape. Calm. And that can be your favorite shape tonight too. Not because you force it, because you allow it, one small conclusion at a time, like soft ripples becoming still. As the evening deepens, the shoreline begins to simplify. Colors mute themselves, edges soften. The reeds that were once green and detailed become silhouettes, thin, dark lines against the lake's dim surface. The water reflects less of the world's brightness and more of the sky's quiet depth. Even sound seems to step back, giving the night more space. Night settles into the reeds the way a blanket settles onto a bed, slowly, naturally, without needing to be arranged perfectly. The reeds sway with a small patience. They bend slightly with the breeze and then return. They don't resist the night. They don't hold on to the day. They simply stand where they are, letting darkness arrive around them like a familiar visitor. The mute swan becomes quieter in its own way too. Its white feathers, so bright in earlier light, dim into silver gray. It still glides, but the movements are softer now, less noticeable. At times it looks almost still, as if it's deciding whether to drift or to rest, and finding that either choice feels acceptable. This is one of the night's great comforts, the lowering of options. In daytime, the mind can feel crowded with possibilities. What to do next, what to fix, what to plan. But at night, the world asks for fewer decisions. The lake doesn't ask the swan to perform. The reeds don't ask to be rearranged. The sky doesn't ask to be understood. Everything leans toward quiet. If you let yourself notice this, your own inner landscape can begin to follow. You can let your attention become narrower, more peaceful. You can let your thoughts become fewer, like lights turning off in distant windows. You can let your body settle into the simple truth of being supported. Imagine the reeds as gentle guardians, not strict, not watchful in a tense way, just present, creating a sheltered edge where the lake feels calmer. And imagine your bed as your own sheltered edge, your own quiet corner where the night can arrive fully. Sometimes a mind resists this settling. It tries to keep its brightness on. It searches for meaning, for plans, for certainty. But you don't have to follow it into that effort. You can remain with the reeds and water, simple images that do not demand thinking. Breath becomes your shoreline. Inhale, like the lake receiving a small breeze. Exhale, like night settling deeper. Each exhale is a little darker, a little softer. Each exhale invites the body to loosen its hold. And if you hear the faintest sounds, water tapping a stem, a distant call, the whisper of leaves, let them be part of the settling. Let them be evidence that you are not in a blank space. You are in a living night, full of calm rhythms. Night settles into the reeds, and you can settle with it, quietly, gently, until your mind feels like a sheltered cove and your thoughts feel like ripples that no longer need to travel. If you had to draw a lullaby, you might draw the swan. Not because it is loud or dramatic, but because it moves as if it already knows the music of rest. It glides in long, smooth lines. It pauses without guilt. It carries itself with the quiet assurance of something that belongs to slow water and low light. Tonight, the swan becomes more than a bird. It becomes a gentle rhythm you can follow. On the dark lake, its body is a soft, pale shape, white turning to silver as the evening deepens. The neck curves in a relaxed arc. The wake behind it is faint and wide, like a whisper of motion. Everything about the swan suggests that there is no need to hurry, no need to sharpen attention, no need to fill the night with effort. And when you watch it in your mind, something in you may begin to match it. Your breathing becomes a little slower. Your eyelids feel a little heavier. Your thoughts lose some of their sharp edges, becoming more like drifting shapes than urgent messages. You don't have to force this. It often happens naturally when the mind is given something calm to mirror. The swan's lullaby is made of small details: the quiet slide of water, the soft shift of feathers, the patient turn of the head, the gentle decision to do less, the slow acceptance of night. There is a sweetness in that acceptance. The swan doesn't demand the lake be brighter. It doesn't argue with the dusk. It lives inside the dimness, as if dimness is a gift. And in that, the swan teaches a quiet bedtime truth. You can let the world be softer now. If your mind keeps looking for the next thing, you can offer it this: a swan drifting across a lake, again and again. Not the same image as a looped thought, but as a looped comfort. Each time you return to it, the scene gets simpler, the water gets darker, the movement gets slower, the lullaby becomes steadier. There's also a gentle humor in how the swan seems to take its own calm so seriously. It glides as if calm is a formal event, as if drifting is a ceremony, as if being unbothered is a craft it has mastered and intends to practice nightly. It's an amusing thought, and it stays soft, because humor, when gentle, can relax the mind rather than excite it. So let the swan be your floating lullaby. Let it carry your attention lightly, the way it carries its body on water. Let it show you that slow motion can be enough, that quiet can be full, that rest can be a natural posture. And as the swan's wake widens and fades, allow your thoughts to widen and fade as well, until there is less to hold, less to do, and more space to simply drift. Now the light begins to thin out completely. The lake becomes darker, smoother, and more reflective in a quiet way, reflecting not bright shapes, but dim gradients, the deepening sky, the softened outline of reeds, the faint suggestion of cloud. The swan's white feathers, once so clear, now look like a gentle glow that is slowly dimming, as if the bird is becoming part of the night. The mood is not ending. It is settling. The swan drifts with fewer visible movements. If it paddles, it does so in small, unseen strokes. If it turns slowly, as if turning is optional. The wake behind it grows faint, then fainter, until it is almost indistinguishable from the lake's natural texture. This is a good moment to let your breath become the main story. Not a breath you control tightly, just a breath you notice. Imagine your inhale as a slight lift, like a ripple rising. Imagine your exhale as a soft release, like that ripple widening and smoothing into still water. Let the exhale last a little longer than the inhale, if that feels comfortable. Let it be the part that signals the night is safe. Feather-soft breath is the kind that doesn't scrape the throat. It moves quietly. It warms the inside of the body. It settles the chest. It becomes less like breathing to achieve something, and more like breathing because you are allowed to rest. The swan shows you this without instruction. It simply breathes. It simply exists. It keeps its warmth under feather layers and lets the lake support its weight. The body does what it was made to do, without commentary. And your body can do that too. If your mind tries to evaluate your progress, how sleepy you are, how long it's taking, you can let that evaluation drift away like a small piece of leaf on the water. It can float. It can pass. It does not need a response. Return to the breath. Return to the image of the lake. Return to the swan, now nearly still, its shape softening into darkness. You might imagine the feeling of feathers as an idea of softness. layers that protect without pressure. Let that idea spread through you. Let your shoulders feel feather soft. Let your face feel feather soft. Let your thoughts feel feather soft, less sharp, more airy, more willing to dissolve. The last visible light fades, but nothing is lost. The night has its own presence. The lake continues its quiet movement. The swan continues its gentle drift, and your breath continues steady and kind. Fading light, feather-soft breath. This is the point where the story becomes less about learning and more about being held. And if sleep begins to arrive now, you don't have to notice it happening. You can simply drift into it, quietly, like a swan becoming still on dark water. Even when the lake looks still, it keeps a rhythm. It's not a rhythm you have to count. It's not a rhythm that hurries. It's the kind of rhythm that simply continues, like a quiet heartbeat that doesn't need to be heard to be trusted. Water shifts in tiny currents. Reeds sway and return. The air moves softly across the surface. And somewhere in that layered hush, the mute swan remains, floating, breathing, belonging. At night, the world becomes simpler, but it does not become empty. The lake holds the sky's dark reflection. A few small sounds remain, subtle and rounded, a faint lap at the shore, a soft tick of stems touching, a low hum of insects that feels more like atmosphere than noise. These sounds do not build toward anything. They settle into a steady background, like the quiet hum of a room that feels safe. The swan's rhythm is part of that safety. The bird drifts with minimal motion. If it adjusts gently. If it rests fully. The swan seems to understand that nighttime is not for explaining yourself. Nighttime is for conserving warmth, conserving attention, and letting the world do some of the holding. And you can let the world hold you too. You don't have to keep your mind upright. You don't have to keep your thoughts organized. You can let them soften and scatter like mist thinning across the lake. If a thought appears, you can let it exist without turning it into work. The swan doesn't chase ripples. It lets them fade. So you can let your mind fade toward quiet, one gentle cycle at a time. If it helps, you can imagine your breath as the lake's rhythm. Inhale, small rise. Exhale, wide settling. No need for perfection, no need for depth. Just a steady, comfortable motion, repeated kindly. Your body already knows how to do this. It has been doing it all day, all life. Tonight, it can do it more slowly, as if matching the lake's patience. There is something comforting about rhythm without urgency. It tells the nervous system, nothing is chasing you. Nothing is demanding answers. The night is allowed to be ordinary, and ordinary at this hour is beautiful. The swan remains on the dark water, a soft shape against an even softer world. You can imagine it as a small point of steadiness, calm enough to follow, quiet enough not to wake you. The reeds continue their gentle sway. The lake continues its subtle movement. The sky continues its slow turning overhead. And all of this continues without asking anything from you. So let your muscles loosen in the presence of that rhythm. Let your eyelids feel heavy. Let your thoughts become less specific and more like texture, like water, like air, like softness. A world that keeps a gentle rhythm is a world that makes sleep possible. And tonight, you are inside that world. There is a kind of peace that comes from noticing how ordinary nature can be. Not ordinary as in boring, ordinary as in dependable. A lake at night doesn't need special effects. It doesn't need dramatic light. It simply becomes what it always becomes. Darker, quieter, smoother at the surface. Reeds remain reeds. Water remains water. A swan remains a swan, floating, breathing, adjusting in small ways that feel almost like nothing. And in that ordinariness, everything feels safe. The mute swan is not trying to become a symbol. It isn't performing elegance for an audience. It isn't proving anything. It is simply living, feeding when it needs to, preening when it must, drifting when the water allows, resting when the night invites. The ordinary routines are what keep the swan well. And in a quiet way, those routines can remind you that you do not need a grand solution tonight. You only need the ordinary supports that make rest possible. A steady breath, a comfortable surface beneath you, a soft story voice in the background, a room that is dim enough, a body that is allowed to relax one small part at a time. This is the kind of rest that does not demand improvement. It doesn't demand that you become more productive or more disciplined or more anything. It asks only that you stop adding effort, that you let the ordinary do its work. The lake does not try to be an ocean. The swan does not try to be a bird of prey. Each stays within its nature, and that staying is what makes the scene calm. If your mind is trying to be something else, trying to solve, plan, compare, replay, you can let it return to its simpler function, noticing softness. Notice the sensation of your breath. Notice the weight of your blanket. Notice the way your shoulders can drop a fraction more. Notice how the face can smooth when you stop holding it. This is not a checklist. It's just attention resting on the ordinary. The swan drifts through the ordinary night as if it trusts it completely. The water holds it without making a sound about it. The feathers hold warmth without asking to be admired. The reed shadows line the shore without changing their minds. Everything remains, and that remaining becomes comfort. There is also a small, gentle humor in how serious we can be about sleep, when sleep is one of the most ordinary things the body does. The swan does not try to sleep the way a human tries. It simply becomes sleepy when it becomes sleepy. It settles. It tucks. It allows. You can allow too. You don't need the night to be extraordinary. You don't need yourself to be extraordinary. You only need the ordinary kindness of rest. And as you rest inside the ordinary, breath, warmth, quiet, sleep can arrive like it often does. Softly, without announcement, as natural as a swan becoming still on dark water. Now the lake is almost completely quiet. Not perfectly. Nothing in nature is perfect in that rigid way, but quiet enough that the smallest movement stands out and then fades. If the swan shifts its body, a faint ripple appears. If the breeze touches the surface, the water responds with a soft texture. And then, slowly, everything returns to smoothness again. The last ripples become still. You can picture the swan now as a pale, restful shape in the darkness. It may drift a little, then pause, then drift again. The movement is so subtle that it feels like the lake is breathing rather than the swan moving. The bird's wake is barely visible. It spreads gently and disappears before it becomes a story. This is a good time to let your thoughts behave like ripples, A thought appears. It travels outward. It thins. It fades. You don't have to stop it from appearing. You don't have to catch it. You don't have to interpret it. You can simply let it do what ripples do. Move through, then soften into stillness. If a thought repeats, it can repeat. Ripples can repeat too. The lake doesn't get frustrated with them. It simply smooths itself again and again. So you can smooth yourself again and again. Return to your exhale. Return to the heaviness in your body. Return to the image of the swan. Each return is gentle. Each return is quiet. Each return is an easing. Imagine the shoreline now. The reeds are darker than ever, just outlines against the night. The lily pads are shadows. The air is cool and still. The world feels held in a slow pause. Even the distant sounds have thinned into background softness. The swan is calm enough that it almost disappears into the lake's dark story. And that disappearing is not loss, it is blending. It is the kind of blending you feel when sleep begins. Your attention becomes less sharp. Your thoughts lose their edges. Your sense of time becomes vague and gentle. You don't vanish. You simply stop gripping. If you find yourself holding onto wakefulness, you can loosen your hold by loosening the body. Let the forehead soften. Let the tongue rest. Let the shoulders melt downward. Let the hands become warm and heavy. Let the legs feel as though they are sinking gently into the bed. These are small releases, like ripples fading. The last ripples become still, and the stillness becomes wide enough to hold you. Tonight, you don't have to go anywhere. You don't have to reach a finish line. You can simply allow the lake's lesson to work in you. Motion can quiet itself. Effort can dissolve. The mind can smooth. The swan remains nearly still, and you can remain nearly asleep. The lake is now a dark, quiet mirror. The reeds are silhouettes. The sky is deeper, softer, and full of night. The mute swan rests on the water as if it has become part of the lake's own calm, one pale shape held by darkness, supported by softness, warmed by feathers and the quiet work of the body. In this final moment, we don't need new ideas. We only need the feeling of being carried. The swan drifts, perhaps only a little, moved by the smallest current. The water holds it without effort. The night holds the lake the same way, and you are held too, by your bed, by your breath, by the slow settling of a world that knows how to rest. If there are still a few thoughts in your mind, you can let them be like distant lights across the lake, small, far away, and not asking anything from you. You can watch them without following them. You can let them dim on their own. Return to the simplest rhythm. Inhale and exhale. Inhale, soft rise. Exhale, soft release. Each exhale can be a little longer, a little quieter, a little more like a door closing gently. Not locked, not forced, just closed enough that the night air stays calm inside. The swan's calm is not a performance. It is a practice of drifting, a practice of conserving, a practice of allowing the world to be gentle, and that practice is available to you. You can allow your body to do what it is meant to do now. Slow down, repair, reset, return to quiet. You do not have to supervise it. You do not have to earn it. You only have to stop interrupting it with effort. Let the lake remain in your imagination for as long as you like. Dark water, soft reed shadows, a pale swan, nearly still. If your awareness begins to fade, let it fade. If you drift, let yourself drift. If sleep comes in waves, let it come in waves. There is no wrong way for the night to carry you. And as we close this gentle journey, we return to the final words, like a soft hand smoothing the surface of the lake. Everything flows through the wild. Sleep in that motion. Everything flows through the wild. Sleep in that motion.